Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show.
Cup of Joe Wrestling Show?
With Joey Harris. A podcast for the wrestling fan on the go. So take your favorite beverage of choice and join Joey as he takes a look at some of the biggest shows on the WWE Network.
From makeshift studios deep in the heart of stately Maine Manor, this is the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show, and I am your host, Joey Harris. Folks, how are you doing? How was your week? I have a confession to make. August in my job is extremely stressful. It's the busiest time of the year. So I'm recording my August shows ahead of time, trying to get ahead of schedule. So I'm recording this the day after I recorded the last episode, but for you it's been a week. So by the time I record it to the time it comes out it's almost been 2 weeks. So if there's a big thing that happens in wrestling, I probably won't talk about it until I start recording weekly again. But I do want to mention that after I recorded the last episode and before I recorded this one, we lost Regis Philbin. Always a great fan of wrestling, had the wrestlers on his show for years, was notably at WrestleMania 7. Regis, you're the greatest. His earthquake story was just fantastic. Big fan of classy Freddie Blassie. So rest in peace, Regis. You were a great friend to the wrestling business. I talked about last episode my anniversary that I had, and I have to say this, I don't get into a lot of this a lot of times, but I have to talk about what my wife got me for our anniversary. And I've been working on this podcast and trying to grow the listenership, grow the download numbers, and she got me a notebook, 2 notebooks for my show notes for the next 2 years, 2 t-shirts with the show logo and my Twitter handle on the back, and a water bottle with the logo on it, and just so much stuff just to show me that I've been supportive of her and she is supportive of this endeavor and what I do. And I don't mind tell you, I broke down. I started crying. It was so emotional to me, and I don't mind sharing that. Like I said, that's what it meant to me. I wanted to say that. It was very touching, and especially when you have someone who supports your endeavor that you are so passionate about. Let's dive right into this week's show. Today we look at the May 1989 Saturday Night's Main Event from the WWF. This is Saturday Night's Main Event number 21. It was shown on NBC on May the 27th, 1989. It was recorded April 25th, 1989 from the Veterans Memorial Auditorium in Des Moines, Iowa. Hulk Hogan, behind the blue cage, says that the Big Boss Man and Slick are going to have their day in court inside the cage, and we roll right into our opening credits. Vince McMahon and Jesse Ventura welcome us to the show. They're doing this in front of a green screen as the era of live calls at the arena is largely over. Jesse says Hogan is in trouble because he is thinking of Hollywood and his big movie premiere coming up instead of the Big Boss Man. Vince and Jesse then review the WrestleMania Intercontinental Championship match. Mean Gene Okerlund interviews Rick Rude and Bobby Heenan. They say that the only rule that matters is just win, baby. Jim Duggan is a dreamer if he thinks he is going to win the Intercontinental title. And dreamers get a rude awakening. Jesse then brings up Rick Rude winning the Jesse the Body Award, so if you're drinking at home, you can take a shot. Mean Gene interviews newly crowned King Jim Duggan. He's dedicating his match to those who gave their life for country this Memorial Day weekend. WWF Intercontinental Championship match. Rick Rude with Bobby Heenan versus Jim Duggan. Duggan gets carried to the ring now that he's defeated Haku for the King title, so Jesse is not impressed. Duggan dominates early. Rude comes back. Duggan hits a pile driver on Rude for a 2 count. Haku comes down. He wants his crown back. Other refs try to get him out. Rude then takes over. He hits the top rope fist drop. Duggan hits the 3-point stance, knocking Rude to the floor. Rude doesn't beat the count back in. Jim Duggan wins the match by count out. And of course, the title doesn't change hands on the count out. Mean Gene interviews Jim Neidhart. He wants Randy Savage tonight, and he is intense here. A little decaf for the anvil, please. This was not the first time that they tried to make Jim and Brett single stars. They would have little runs as single stars before coming back together and being the Hart Foundation again. Jesse interviews Randy Savage and his new manager, Sensational Sherry. Savage says that after he finishes with Jim Neidhart, he's coming after Hogan, and he's going to get his belt back. Sherry is better than Elizabeth as a manager, and she is looking very good here, I must say. Jim Neidhart versus Randy Savage with Sensational Sherry. Savage does his usual bumping job for Neidhart. Sherry is so good in her role. Neidhart hits a standing drop kick at one point. Neidhart ends up outside and Savage hits a flying axe handle from the corner. Savage hits the flying elbow for the pin, and if you look at this match, notice that Randy Savage's elbow is still heavily bandaged up. Fallout from that staph infection that he had before WrestleMania. Jesse interviews Slick and the Big Boss Man about the cage match with Hulk Hogan coming up. Slick says Hogan is running scared. Boss Man says Hogan is in his jail now. Slick and the Boss Man head to the ring. Boss Man here looks like he has duct tape on his wrists. It's very strange. Slick says he has a surprise for Hogan as Zeus comes down to the ring and stands at the entrance to the cage. Hogan comes down to a big pop. Zeus attacks Hogan and then leaves. We go directly into our next match, a WWF Heavyweight Championship match in a steel cage. Hulk Hogan versus the Big Boss Man with Slick. Boss Man comes over and kicks the cage door and seriously almost takes the ref out. Boss Man dominates early. Boss Man climbs down, but Hogan pulls him back up and superplexes Boss Man back in. Both men are knocked down. The referee comes in and starts counting. Both men then up and Boss Man is keeping Hogan from going out of the door. Slick throws Boss Man a chain and he starts choking Hogan. Both men then rammed into the cage and Hogan then keeps Boss Man from going out. Hogan gets the chain. He knocks Boss Man out. He hits the leg drop. Hogan goes to climb out. Slick knocks the ref out and goes inside. He stops Hogan from going out. Slick is then knocked out by Hogan, and Hogan cuffs Boss Man to the ropes. Hogan climbs out as Slick tries to uncuff Boss Man so that he can go out of the door. Hogan beats Slick up after the match, and then, as always, Hogan must pose. Jesse interviews Bobby Heenan and the Brain Busters. Tonight is the night, they say. All they have left to do is pick up the titles. Mean Gene interviews Demolition. They say they have the momentum going into the match. WWF World Tag Team Championship match. Demolition Axe and Smash versus the Brain Busters. Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard with Bobby Heenan. The Brain Busters are so good. Demolition have power moves to start. Brain Busters use good double team moves. Blanchard bumps for Axe. Smash is so powerful. Blanchard is thrown onto Bobby Heenan. He then goes after Demolition, but the Brain Busters hold him back. The Brain Busters start coming back. Anderson hits a perfect spine buster. Nobody hits a spine buster like Arn Anderson hits a spine buster. Blanchard does some strutting. They get Smash outside and pummel him. Smash and Anderson both knocked out of the ring. They prevent Axe from tagging in. Then all four brawl inside. Axe tosses referee Joey Morella for a disqualification. They brawl to the back after the match. Jesse interviews Randy Savage and Sensational Sherry. Savage says he's the number one contender to the WWF title, and he will get his title back. Sherry asks what Hulk Hogan is going to do when the madness runs wild. Boris Zukov with Slick versus Jimmy Snuka. Snuka's music cuts Zukov's music off. Quick match because there isn't much time left in the broadcast. Snuka wins after the Superfly. Mean Gene interviews Hulk Hogan. He says Zeus has been a problem for him for a long time. He's ready for the premiere of No Holds Barred. They sign off from Des Moines. Hey folks, if you like the show, please leave a review in iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or your podcast platform of choice. There are a number of ways that you can contact me. You can follow the show's Twitter at Cup of Joe Pod. You can email the show at cupofjoewrestlingshow@gmail.com. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I am at The Joey Harris. Thank you for joining me this week. This is Joey Harris saying so long from Stately, Maine Manor.
The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show is a production of Baby Kangaroo Media.